Hey guys, this is Mark.
This is Michelle.
And this is Mark and Michelle. And we thought we'd depart from the program, so to speak, tonight.
The teaching slides.
Right.
Because we've been having a conversation and Mark's made some new revelations and I've made new revelations, and we thought we'd be real and share it with you.
Right. Because you need to know what's in your future when you're recovering from autism. And this is something I didn't know was in my future, not entirely. Let me start with a quick story so I can kind of set the context here. Back in 2005, 2006, I was in school for biology after having finished an anthropology degree. And one of the requirements for biology was a chemistry minor, and it was heavy chemistry. So it was general chemistry 1, general chemistry 2, organic chemistry 1, organic chemistry 2, and biochemistry. It was a lot of chemistry. And so I was in organic chemistry 1. Now, this is a big class. It's 240 people in a large theater-style room, and one professor way up at the front of the class. I'm sitting about halfway back. And in my whole life, I had never noticed this about me until this particular time in this organic chemistry class. And I raised my hand to ask the teacher a question. The teacher points to me, and I start asking my question. As I start talking, almost every person in the room turned around to look at me. And I stopped and I looked at all these people. I mean, I scanned the room from one side to the other and then halfway back. And then I looked at the teacher and continued with my question with an obvious befuddled look on my face, going, why the heck are all these people looking at me? And from then on, I started noticing that in my other classes. If I asked a question, or if I spoke up, it would catch the attention of everyone in the room just about. That was bizarre to me. And I never thought to mention it to Michelle.
Yeah, you did.
Did I mention it back then?
Mm-hmm.
And so since we started my recovery from autism and her recovery from her health issues back in 2013, I have since noticed, and this is about 2 years on, that in interacting with people, I affect them many times. I affect other people profoundly just by the use of my voice. And she's giggling over here, but that was the conversation earlier.
Well, lots of people have told you have a radio voice.
Yes, but I didn't know. That was
when you were autistic.
I just thought it was great for radio. I didn't know it meant that it carried weight. Some sense of gravity or doom or whatever the hell. Doom, though, is an old Anglo-Saxon word for judgment.
Okay.
So we'll go there in a minute.
Yes.
And so about 2015, I started noticing that either my brain had come on or more emotions or something, because when I would interact with people, many of those people seemed to be shaken after talking with me. And I remember we talked to my mom and dad about this, and my mom said that my uncle Danny, that was her brother. He was older than her. She said that he was like that. And when I thought about it, I remember Uncle Danny. Hey, Krista, Ashley.
I thought Danny was younger than your mom.
No, he's 5 years older.
Well, okay.
And so my mom said that my Uncle Danny was that way. He could, even with a look, he could quiet a room. Mm-hmm. And I thought, And I remember we were at some function at a church here. Chris and Christy were there, and my mom and dad, my sister and her husband, and my mom and dad, and some other people. And I was talking about that, and this was right about the time I had discovered that just the sound of my voice would seem to shake people to their soul. And I don't seem to be exaggerating here, because after this conversation earlier, and so I mentioned that, and my mom said, no, he was very much like that. And I noticed recently, in the past couple weeks, we've been doing the heavy metal detox smoothie again. And so keeping this in mind, this quality of my voice, whatever this is, Michelle scooted back her chair from the table tonight and looked at me squarely in the face and said, you know, something has happened. You have either come on more, your voice is now absolutely dripping with venom.
That is not what I said.
Those are not her exact words, but the intent behind that was for me to realize that I had to be very careful how I said things. Am I getting that right?
Right. Well, what I said was, I don't know how to fix this, but suddenly I feel like I'm engulfed by your personality.
Yes.
And I have to maintain myself to be able to be with you and work, because we're working together on these products that we're making for you guys. And so it's a lot of intellectual property, and we're having to work together to decide, is this how we say this, or should we say it like this?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and he's come on so much in the last couple of weeks that I lose my thoughts when he starts talking. Look at that look. Show them the look. So I'm having to readjust to make myself strong on the inside, to not allow him to bowl me over. And I just mean his personality.
Well, the word that got tossed out once was testosterone.
I said testosterone.
Right. You know, the San Francisco treat. And that's a Friends quote for some of you folks who don't know or do know. But
actually, it was from the Rice-A-Roni commercial.
Well, Rice-A-Roni is a San Francisco treat,
right?
Testosterone.
Yes.
But
he's become very masculine, very male, but he doesn't have the gestalt around male.
Yeah, all the beliefs and all the habits and all
because he was autistic throughout all of that learning.
I never picked up the masculine macho behaviors.
So I'm not talking about macho. I'm talking about overlording. Huge personality.
Makes me sound horrible, I know. But that has been an issue with me at work, because people have gotten nervous. Even store managers and departmental managers get nervous around me. And I think that's bizarre. I'm like, you have authority here. Yet almost just a grunt from me sends people running. And I find that bizarre. I don't actually want that.
So what we talked about is his thoughts create emotions immediately now, and he's never had to control his judgmental thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So go into that.
Well, we're all judgmental. As humans, we're all judgmental to a certain extent. And I realized a few years ago that being judgmental isn't always a bad thing, because now what I mean by being judgmental is saying, oh, I won't hang out with those people. I'll hang out with those people instead, because it's a defense mechanism. It actually keeps you out of trouble. Now, usually what we mean by judgment is ascribing a quality to somebody that they don't deserve, all in an effort to make you feel better about yourself. It's a propping up of your own ego by demeaning someone else for a particular trait they have. And
that's not what I see you doing.
No, what you see me doing, well, I don't know, what would you call?
That was just that for instance, at the grocery store today, someone bumped him with a cart and he just gave the look of death, which included X-ray vision emotions that rat-a-tat-a-tatted the person as they walked by. Is that
okay? Well, what she's describing is the utter contempt that I seem to.
Disgusted.
Well, and I'll tell you where that comes, and you'll see a lot of autistic people with that same arrogance. When you're autistic, you don't catch on to verbal instructions a lot of times quick enough for someone else, for an NT. And not all NTs are like this, but if you don't catch on fast enough, if you don't do it the right way, if you
Kitty, kick the kitty.
If you don't hear things correctly,
or interpret correctly,
or interpret things correctly, you get treated with contempt, or basically you get called stupid by actions or behavior quite often. I mean, I won't say quite often. I can remember it happening once a day. And people, Hunter has that look, which look, the smiling, the kind of knowing look. But when you're autistic, you get treated so stupid so often, as if you're stupid so often, that that as a defense mechanism, you wind up being judgmental just to preserve what little esteem you have left after that.
I think you have a bunch of cookies in your metaphorical web browser when you have had all those experiences. I'm just totally confusing you. You know how cookies never go away unless you delete them?
Right.
Okay,
so what you're saying is
so,
I have an overload of old traumas that need to be dumped.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay. So, all right, I get you now. And that's true. And I've known that. And that...
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Let's be honest.
Okay, let's say it out loud so the podcasters know. Our friend Ashley says that death look when someone bumps into him. He gets defensive of his space and can lash out.
Yes, I still do that. I try not to, but people,
now it has emotion attached to it.
Well, I intend that emotion now.
Yes, you do.
When it comes to that, I do. Because I grew up in a big city of about 6.5 million people. You don't look at people. Now, I didn't know that then. Being autistic, you don't look at people. You most definitely don't run into people. You don't. And here, people have different views of that. I have people come in contact with me physically every day, numerous times. And I don't like it. And they get too close to me. See, in Atlanta, you don't get that close to people.
You don't.
Here, here in Oklahoma City, this culture is people will invade your personal space. They don't realize they're doing it. But it doesn't make me any happier about it, whether they realize it or not. And then many times they do realize it. And then I have to say something, then all of a sudden I'm wrong. So yeah, there is definitely a look of death, of eternal damnation.
I saw it today.
Hoping that coming eternal damnation for these folks, because please be aware. I mean, my whole life, people have treated me with contempt for not being aware. So I'm not saying that I'm right, but I'm saying that's where that came from. And so lashing out like that, I totally get it, Ashley, because in my head, I'm doing that. And now I'm doing that with emotion attached, which can be hurtful.
Volatile.
Yeah. Well, people think I'm volatile, but at the same time, hurtful to them. And so apparently this past couple weeks, that has magnified, become a much bigger phenomenon than it was. And so Michelle is feeling that more. And, it's something that makes me worried because I've tried to control that as much as possible. So if it comes on when I don't know it, if this comes out more and more, if it gets worse and I don't know it, then how can I control it? And even then, I've lived my entire life not knowing that this existed. And so, well, but people, and Ashley, you make a good point about being touched. I guess because being autistic, I didn't understand what people were trying to tell me. They would grab me. And that even happened to me in my 30s. Store manager at Borders didn't like something that I did and grabbed me by my arm and dragged me a good distance.
Wow.
And I told her, don't do that to me ever again. I said, my parents did that to me. Don't do it. And she never did it again. But do you see my point? Why put your hands on someone? I mean, you go to jail for that. Yet that happens so often because I didn't understand the words you were using to me. And I just then I almost got vulgar. But that's how I feel about it. People have physically pushed me around in my life because I didn't understand what they were trying to tell me. Or I didn't know that they felt a certain way about something and they couldn't express it. In ninth grade, I happened to be standing next to some guy's desk, and some black kid grabbed my butt and moved me out of the way because he didn't like my butt so close to his face. You don't get to put your hands on anybody. You just don't. And so when you contact me, and see, it's probably a mix of all of those things together over a period of 40 years, 50 years. My parents did that to me as well. And have all compounded to this point to where don't invade my personal space. Do not do it. Because you will be hurt. I can't hurt physically, so I'll hurt you emotionally. So that is my boundary. Don't invade my personal space.
See, we're talking about the intent this evening.
But the intent, so do I intend that intent? Yes, I do.
So that's where I'm talking about. You have to start controlling that, or you're going to have some trouble.
Well, I've already had trouble. And so what you're saying is I really need to find out how to cover it up around you, because this relationship is the most important one to me. I don't give a crap about any of the others, not ultimately. And so this is the only one that I really will work hard at making that change to. But it will be nice to get back to a city where people respect your personal space. And so I know where you're coming from. I understand where you're coming from. You want me to be able to control it around you, because you're right. You don't deserve that. And I'll admit I didn't know anything about it until tonight.
Right. So we're having a real conversation for you guys.
So the whole point here, the whole point that I'm saying this is that when, as your child or your autistic adult or loved one in your life heals from autism, there are going to be things in their personality that you never knew about.
That they didn't know.
That they didn't know about. That are going to come out and come on, and they will be buttons.
And you have to just adjust. You have to figure out how to fit into it.
She and I
done
both.
this before. This is just another thing.
Amanda, I'm glad you showed up. It's been a long time, and She used to be one of the supervisors at the store. And so it will be a constant adjustment until you guys completely figure each other out, if that ever happens. And so that's
why
reason,
it's important. If you're doing the heavy metal detox smoothie and start having things like this happen, you need to stop doing it for like a week or so, so that you can figure out where you are in that moment. Because if you don't stop, you're just going to keep changing, and you're not going to be able to fix the one thing. You're going to have like 5 things.
Stopping detox helps you manage the consequences of the detox. That's what we've been saying all this time. Is that cool?
I'm not sure if consequences is the word I would use, because it kind of sounds negative.
Well,
because ultimately this is going to be amazing, because every time we have something come up, we get through it, and then it's wow.
Well, so not consequences, the effects of detox.
The awakenings.
Less emotion, the awakenings in detox.
Yeah.
Because she's had her own. It's just that, to me, they've been so subtle, I haven't really noticed them, other than her being happier.
I've been happier.
So, and so when this stuff happens, we always work through it. But just so you know, when you heal from anything, there's going to be changes. I mean, in this case, we're talking about autism, but when you heal from anything in your life, physically, mentally, or otherwise, there are going to be changes that you have to adapt to. And but you guys being able to hear why autistic people get touchy about being touched, more than likely it's because they've been physically dragged or pushed into something because of a simple communication issue. All because they couldn't understand verbal instructions. And if that happened to me in my mid-30s, from one of my store managers at an old job, that's just wrong. And so that's why we're telling you, is because a lot of the problems with autism are actually consequences of the autism itself.
Yes.
A lot of the thinking patterns, we talked about that a couple nights ago.
Yes.
And paranoia. In fact, sometimes when people ask me to do a job for them, I look at them squarely in the eye with a look on my face like, are you sure you want to ask me this? Because I don't trust them. Because so many times people gave me work that was their work to do, but they just didn't want to do it. So they figured, we'll give it to the guy who won't say no. So
the guy who can't say no.
The guy who can't say no.
Yeah.
And so, you need to know that those problems do exist, and you just have to change. You just have to learn how to adapt as you heal. So
we want to make sure you know this stuff, how hard it is as an adult to do, so that you'll be really focused on healing your kids. Because it's so much easier to heal a kid. Relationships get complex when you're this old.
As you get older. Yeah. So anyway, what else did we want to talk about?
That's it. We got.
Well,
thanks for being here.
Yeah. Hey, Amanda,
Wait,
Tammy?
I'm so afraid of him not being able to tell me what people are doing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, one of our friends in New Zealand, an assistant teacher told her son to shut up, and he pushed her son outside the classroom in the outdoors and closed the door on him. That happened the other day.
That.
Yeah, that happened the other day. And that assistant teacher got fired.
Good.
And he's just 5 or 6. He's not very old, I think. And so
I missed that.
Yeah, and he was an autistic kid. He just he couldn't understand what the teacher was trying to tell him. And so the teacher got frustrated and just said, "Shut up," and pushed him literally outside of the classroom and closed the door on him. We're talking about a child here.
Yeah.
So that is another example of NTs not being patient.
Or not being trained.
Or not being trained, either one. Yeah, well, maybe patience has to be trained. Huh?
Well, yes, it does.
So anyway, but Guys, thanks for joining us. And we will be back tomorrow at 10:45. Remember, keep doing that celery juice and the heavy metal detox smoothie. And we can help you through the changes.
Okay, guys. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.